welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany and welcome to day 5 of the 12 days of Christmas. So today I'm sharing with you my first TBR of the new year, which is always exciting. The list of books that I have here that I am definitely reading is actually fairly short, in concordance with my plans that I want to do for 2025, where I mood read more, but I do have some other plans and ideas of how I'm going to fill in gaps. But I'm going to talk first about like my definite TBR, the books that I am for sure reading, and then I'm going to talk to you about some possibilities. So for my in-person book club, we will be reading Parnassus on Wheels by Christopher Morley. This is a book I have wanted to read for a super long time, so I'm really excited about it. It's a pretty short book, like 150 pages, and all I know about it is that it's about like a traveling bookseller or book tinker. And so I am thrilled to read this with my in-person book club in January, and yeah, I've had it on my shelf for a really long time. For my Patreon, I will be reading, not this whole thing, this is just the collection that I'm reading it out of. We're reading White Nights by Dostoevsky. The options that we had to vote on for our poll in January were all Russian short stories or novellas, and the one that won was White Nights, which I'm really excited about. And I've heard a couple of people tell me that it's actually a really good starting place for Dostoevsky in terms of his short stories and stuff. So I know I have some Russian literature newbies in my Patreon, as well as some very like seasoned Russian lit lovers, and so I feel like this will meet us all across the board. My classic for the month is A Good Man is Hard to Find by Flannery O'Connor. I said in my classics TBR that this is in the spirit of Flannery O January, even though we haven't done that in a couple of years, but we did it 2 years in a row where we spent January focusing on some Flannery O'Connor works. And so because of that, January feels like a Flannery month always to me. And so I'm really excited to read this. This has 10 of her short stories in it. I'm most excited to read The River because I have several friends who did like in-depth like videos specifically on that one short story on their channel. And so I'm really excited to pick that one up, but I'm also really excited about the title story. I'm just excited in general. I really love Flannery, and I actually didn't get to read any of her last year. It just didn't work out. So I'm excited to hop back in with this. I'm going to be reading through the Anne of Green Gables books next year, which actually Chantel Reads All Day is doing a year of Maud and is reading through all the Anne of Green Gables books along with some other books interspersed throughout. But before she made that announcement, Stephanie from Miss Richards Reads and we had been planning to read Anne together for months. We're like, let's do it next year. And so the timing is quite fortuitous. So January we'll be kicking off with Anne of Green Gables. I really love these Tundra editions. I think the illustrations are just so lovely. So anyway, really excited to read this. It's been a couple years since I have reread it, but I'm most excited to actually continue out throughout the entirety of the Anne books because quite a few of them I have not read since I was like a kid or a young teenager. I can't remember which. So I've only reread the first 3 in my adult years. So super excited. It's funny because everyone says that Anne is a fall book because of that quote, like, I'm so glad I live in a world where there are Octobers, but it really goes through all the seasons, so I don't really feel like Anne is particularly a fall book. And the last book that I will for sure be reading in January is Wind of Truth by Brandon Sanderson. I've already started this. At the time of filming, I am actually, I think, almost 100 pages through it. So my goal is to finish this by the end of January because I want to work on more series, get back to Robin Hobb, read some other things, and all of my time, it feels like, as far as fantasy is concerned, in the past like year has been taken up with Sanderson, from reading through Mistborn and finishing up Stormlight Archive, reading novellas, reading other things. I've just read a lot of Sanderson the last couple of years. And so this is gonna kind of like complete my Sanderson for a little bit. I still have some unread Sanderson on my shelves that maybe I'll pick up sometime in 2025, but if I do, it won't be till towards the end of the year. Okay, so my other plans for January. I have 2. So we will be continuing with We Love Jenny to honor the memory of Jennifer Brooks as we are approaching the 1-year anniversary of her passing. By the time this video comes out, Christy and I will have already done a live show to talk about our TBR and our plans. And I'm keeping mine kind of loosey-goosey. Like I said in that live, that I have some books that I'm like, oh yeah, like that will work. Like for example, Jenny really loved the title story, A Good Man Is Hard to Find. I don't know if she read the other short stories in that collection, but she really liked that one. So that's one that definitely works. But I'm kind of keeping some of my other plans loose because my other plan that I want to do for January, as I mentioned, I've been really enjoying reading seasonally lately. So I want to read some cold books, and some of the books that I want to read that feel wintry and chilly correspond well to Jenny's tastes. And some of them don't. Like for example, Ethan Frome. Like I'm really tempted to pick this up because it's a short read, it's wintry. I actually am like preparing myself to potentially hate it because I know that a lot of people really dislike like the story subject, but I really love Edith Wharton's writing, and I had very mixed feelings on The Age of Innocence. But this one's so short and so wintry that I want to pick it up. And it's actually one of the last books that Jenny completed on her Goodreads that she rated. And she read it on Christmas Day. And I know that this is like quite a depressing read. So definitely not super seasonal for Christmas. And she did not like it. But it still makes me think of Jenny when I think of Ethan Frome, that she read it on Christmas Day and that she didn't like it. So this is a potential for chilly weather books. I also have some Russian short stories that I am tempted to pick up for chilly weather as well, including I have The Blizzard by Pushkin in this collection, and Penny read that last year and really loved it. And she just read a Tolstoy short story as well, and I can't remember what it's called. I'll put the title on the screen, but that's a potential as well. They're both like really, really short. Jenny had also read the first book in a series called Prince of Snow, which obviously sounds very chilly and very good. She gave it 4 stars. So that's one I'm considering. I feel like Caraval could be fun too. I don't know if that's very wintry, but that was one of Jenny's favorite series, was the Caraval series. I also would love to pick up The Fox Godwife, which I did a try chapter of this for the Judge a Book by Its Cover Space for my summer book bingo last year. And this had a really good first chapter, and I wanted to keep reading it, but I'm like, I want to save it for colder weather. And so it has like an amazing cover. I've actually heard very mixed things about it. I've heard it didn't end very well from people I know who have read it, but I also think of Jenny when I see this, because one of the things that Jenny and I like really connected on is we both really loved Tale of the Nine-Tailed, which is a K-drama about nine-tailed foxes, which is a part of Korean mythology. And while The Fox Godwife is actually Chinese, there's a lot of crossover with foxes in mythology in like Chinese and Korean, and I think also Japanese culture and mythology and stuff. There's a lot of crossover for that. So it makes me think of Tale of the Nine-Tailed, even though it's technically Chinese and not Korean. Then I have a couple other books that I have here physically as well that feel like much on the cold end. So we've got The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon. This is actually a spooky book. I actually don't really know much about it, and I'm fine with that because I just like to not know very much going in with books that are considered more thriller or spooky or whatever, because a lot of times the synopsis will maybe tell me more than I want to know, but like the cover is perfectly wintry. My sister loaned this to me. She loved it, and she's not really like a spooky kind of person. This was the right amount of spooky for her, which makes me think it will also be the right amount of spooky for me. And lastly, in terms of chilly books, I have The Winter Garden by Kristen Hanna. And I have not yet read Kristen Hanna since The Nightingale, which I read towards the beginning of my channel, and I loved it. It was one of my favorite books of the year in 2021, but it so emotionally devastated me that I've not yet been ready to pick up another Kristen Hanna. I'm really intrigued by this one, not only because it's chilly, but because the historical element has to do with Russia. It says on the back that it's like a story that their mother is telling them, and it spans 60 years, moves from frozen, war-torn Leningrad to modern day Alaska. So I'm like super curious about this. The fact that it has a Russian setting definitely makes me that much more inclined to pick it up. And I'm hoping, because I think this is one of her older ones, I think that this was published before The Nightingale, but maybe I'm wrong. But maybe it's a little less devastating. I don't know. Kristen Hanna just equals devastation to me in my mind. Like she just wrecks me emotionally. And that is why I have not been ready to pick up another one of her books since The Nightingale. The only other book I have on here that's a possibility, I guess I have some other books that like potentially I could pick up for We Love Jenny, and I'm just leaving myself open if I want to do that instead of some of the ones that I just mentioned. But I really want to start Peter the Great by Robert K. Massey. I have all of Robert K. Massey's Russian books, Peter the Great, Catherine the Great, and Nicholas and Alexandra, and I want to read them all at some point. And the one I'm most interested in is actually Nicholas and Alexandra, because I'm really fascinated with the Romanovs, and I read The Romanov Sisters by Helen Rappaport and was obsessed, like loved that book so much. So I'm most interested in Nicholas and Alexandra, but I feel like I should start with Peter the Great and then do Catherine the Great and then go to Nicholas and Alexandra, so I can kind of get the progression of time, the historical context leading up to Nicholas and Alexandra. So that's my plan. I want to pick that up. Will I finish it in January? I highly doubt it. I really don't think that I will, and I'm fine taking my time with it. But Jenny highly recommended all 3 of these books, and I actually bought them all on her recommendation like several years ago, like 2-3 years ago. So I really want to pick these up and start like working my way through Robert K. Massey, because I wanted to know more about Russian history and stuff like that. And Jenny did a whole video recommending her favorite like nonfiction Russian books. I'll link that video if I remember to. And so these books are on there. And so I'm like, okay, I really, really, really want to read them. So my hope is to start with Peter the Great. That is my TBR / pile of possibilities for the month of January. I would love to hear what you're reading in January. Are you participating in any like readathons or read-alongs? There's a lot of them going on. I know there's Epistolary January, which a lot of people are super excited about. And I think there's like a short stack one that I saw Kelly talking about, which actually I have a ton of things that could fit in here because Ethan Fromm's a novella. I have like 3 Russian short stories that I'm reading. So I'm actually reading quite a few things that fit into that as well. And I'm sure there's others that I don't even know about. So let me know what you are reading in January, what you're participating in, and what book are you the most excited to dive into at the turn of the new year. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me. And I will see you again tomorrow with another of the 12 Days of Christmas.